Genesis 18 and Jehovah's thoughts toward Sodom and Gomorrah are often used to disprove the notion of God's exhaustive foreknowledge. And the main verse they point to is verse 21, where Jehovah says, I will go down now and see if they have done entirely according to its outcry, which has come to me, and if not, I will know. In this text, they say, proves that God didn't know what was going on, and he had to see if they have done entirely according to its outcry. And if their interpretation is correct, that God had to find something out that he didn't already know, then they will have successfully proven that God doesn't know all things in the present. Now, when people use this text to disprove God's foreknowledge, I'm not quite sure they realize the implications of their objection, and here's why. In Genesis 18, three angels or persons visit Abraham and dine with him. In verse 9, one of them inquire of Abraham, where is Sarah, your wife? Now, does this mean that they didn't really know where Sarah is? Now, just setting aside the fact that verse 1 of chapter 18 says, Jehovah appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, we could go along with the fact that maybe Jehovah knows where Sarah is, but not the three angels. But if we continue reading, there are much bigger problems that arise. Now, one example of this is verse 21, in which our objector tells us should be interpreted to mean that there is something that God doesn't know. Now, let's read this verse again. And Jehovah said, the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great, and their sin is exceedingly grave. I will go down now and see if they have done entirely according to its outcry, which has come to me, and if not, I will know. Now, let's consider a few things if we're going to be consistent with how the objector is interpreting this text. Number one, by God's own admission, he does not presently know whether the sin of Sodom is as great as its outcry. Number two, he does not know the past sin of Sodom fully, since he must see if they have done according to their outcry. Third, God is not omnipresent or everywhere present, since he needs to actually travel there to see what's going on. And only then is he able to see what the status of their sins really are. And when God arrives to take a look, then and only then, he will actually know this for sure. Now, if we're going to be consistent here, it would seem to require that Genesis 18:21 is denying the fact that God knows all things past and present. And if this is the case, then we have a much bigger problem than a denial of God's foreknowledge. Here, we have a denial of even more of God's attributes, that is, his knowledge of the past and his knowledge of the present. And it's unfortunate that these are the implications of such an interpretation if we are trying to be consistent. So here's my challenge to you, if you're one of those who thinks that Genesis 18 denies God's foreknowledge. Should we deny of God his knowledge of the past, present, and the future in order to remain consistent? Or should we view the unclear in light of the clear? In other words, to consider whether Scripture elsewhere teaches with sufficient clarity the fact that God exhaustively knows the past, present, and the future, as well as being everywhere present. Now, if this is what Scripture really teaches, how would you then view these texts which seemingly deny of God the attribute of omniscience, that is, knowing all things, past, present, and future?